Bilal, can you give us any more on those casualty figures?
Well, officially, the Interior Ministry spokesman, Najib Danish, was very adamant that at least 5 people are killed. He was grilled in consequent in several interviews on TV about the figures. We heard from Com Airlines, one of the private airlines, and they alone lost at least 10 of their employees, 6 Ukrainians and 2 Venezuelans. The Deputy Chief of Operations for Com Airlines also told me that at least 14 of their employees are still missing. This was an attack that was not only deadly, but it almost took 15 hours for the Afghan Special Forces to not only rescue those who were stuck inside, but to also kill the attackers who had brought in a lot of weapons and ammunition, including AK-47s, hand grenades. I was able to speak to a friend of mine who's a journalist who was stuck inside the hotel last night, and he said that these attackers had liquid explosives. They knew the rooms, they were looking for foreign nationals. So this sort of an attack would have been planned by the militants quite well and quite in advance, which only shows you this culture of security and intelligence breaches that's plaguing the security here in Kabul and elsewhere in the country.
Now, the Taliban have taken responsibility for this attack, but the government also is blaming the Haqqani network.
The Haqqani network is the Pakistan-based militant network. Its leader, Sirajuddin Haqqani, is the deputy head of operations for the Taliban. His group has been responsible for some of the most deadliest and lethal attacks here in Kabul and elsewhere, especially against the Americans. This is also an issue over which a relationship between Washington and Islamabad has got tense. Kabul has always demanded action against the Haqqani network. And before the U.S. strategy that was announced by President Trump, this was sort of one of the prerequisites. The Americans were publicly calling for Pakistan to take action against this group because they have a generational relationship with the Pakistani intelligence and army, but also with Al-Qaeda, going back to the 80s when the elder Haqqani was a very popular guerrilla commander against the Russians here. So no doubt these attacks really puts those ties in very difficult positions between Islamabad and Washington, between Kabul and Islamabad. But more worryingly, both for Washington and Kabul, this current state of security situation will continue to really undermine the confidence of the people. And many people will simply be asking the question, we have spent billions of dollars, we have invested here in blood and treasure, and yet these attacks are taking place time and again. Today, Afghanistan also lost some of its best citizens. A young Afghan who was a known face was among those killed. Afghanistan lost its consul general to Karachi, and one of the major airlines here, the Com airline, is almost paralyzed because it lost at least 5 of its pilots and foreign and Afghan crew members. So you can imagine what an attack like this does. In the long run, it continues to hurt Afghanistan, whether it's the economy or whether it's depriving the best and the most talented Afghans.